Well, welcome everyone. Really a pleasure to see all of you here. And welcome for this second lab of the series of 3 labs of the sphere for this spring. First one was the Unarchive lab that happened 2 weeks ago. I will say a little bit more about it in a few minutes. And the third one is coming up in 3 weeks from now, in mid-May, from the 12th to the 14th. So let me introduce rapidly the day. I'm co-hosting this event with my dear friend Cem Dagdelen, who is not in front of a real pool. He is not in a sunny place. This is all fake, isn't it? So let me get into my document here. So let me read a little bit to introduce the day, and so basically, yeah, we are here with many friends and collaborators from the Berlin-based crypto ecosystem, and it's really a pleasure to have all these people coming together today to introduce their practice and the way that they will be folding into the sphere cyber infrastructure in the near future. So about the sphere, rapidly, for people who don't know us yet, the sphere is a collaborative and emergent Web3 based infrastructure, which is a call to challenge and experiment with the traditional frameworks of cultural production. So in the spirit of the open source movement, the sphere wants to enable every agent in the performing arts ecosystem, artists, cultural professionals, audience cultural organization, as well as a wide range of sympathizers and other potential stakeholders, to participate directly in the shaping of new organizational, aesthetic, and economic forms. This open office session will be an occasion to present the current development of the sphere cyber infrastructure, as well as opening up a space for collective imagineering around the potential for Web3 based derivative art communities. So that part about collective imagineering will be happening more specifically tomorrow. Today, we will be introduced to the nuts and bolts of the different layers that we're imagining to put together to create said sphere cyber infrastructure. So in symbiotic partnership with Curve Labs, Cem will tell us more about Curve Lab shortly. We are most delighted to have with us today 4 key partners for the development of the sphere's digital soul, namely Gnosis, Furtherfield, Culture Stake, Black Swan, and Spectre, in order to model and implement a radically innovative Commons 3.0 for circus and the performing arts. So roughly speaking, just to give you a sense of where the sphere is coming from a little bit, we want to turn part of the European network of circus practitioners, producers, and public as a start. We're starting with an already existing network of partners throughout Europe and even in America, rather than function with the Silicon Valley style of idea of build it and they will come, you know, inspired by Kevin Costner classic Field of Dreams from the early 90s, for those who remember. So instead of this build it and you will come, the sphere has a more hands-on approach. We start with an actual network of circus practitioners, and we want to turn it into an autonomous and generative economic space through the use of distributed autonomous organizations and other crypto tools. These self-reproducing digital souls, as we call them, make for an evolutionary organization that facilitates both the production of original pieces and the proliferation of derivative works. And this whole vision is inspired by Primavera de Filippi's plantoid, that maybe some of you are familiar with. So based on that model, the sphere wants to accumulate capital by picking up a percentage on each performance that is being produced. And then when it reaches a certain threshold, issues a new performance proposition addressed to the community of performers that are part of the sphere. The sphere thus makes the success of one performance a catalyst for working opportunities for the entire community. And since the digital soul and its upcoming generations may work globally, artists from all over the world can eventually be engaged to create performances anywhere. So to put it in a slightly different frame, and paraphrasing Randy Martin, who we will be discussing his work a little bit more in detail tomorrow. Randy Martin is a great thinker of the social logic of the derivatives and a great inspiration for the Sphere project. We could say that, I quote, the readily dismissed ephemerality of art in general and circus in particular would thereby assume a generative durability and elaboration of times and spaces in which collectivities itself would gain and circulate its own currency. So this is just to give you a sense of like this initial dream that we've had, that Sarah and Ule have had, and I joined shortly after, already a while ago. The idea of playing with the tools that are being emerging in the crypto space and adapting it to empower a network of circus and performance artists. So that's like roughly the big idea. So as I said before, this is the second of a series of 3 labs happening in the spring. The first lab happened in November. It was entitled Reimagining Arts and Value Flows, the Sphere as Digital Commons. The second one, as I was saying before, happened 2 weeks ago and was hosted by Joel Mason, here present, and Jay Gilligan, who I think is here as well. The Unarchive Lab was really fascinating in so many ways. I can't render justice to the proliferation of ideas and practices that have emerged, but let me say it in my own words that the Unarchive within the Sphere greater architecture, you can think of it as fostering arts of immanent attention, to ways of bringing attention to the materiality, the fragile, ephemeral materiality of performance practice. And Joel, assisted by a couple of us in the team, created what we call the Anarchivist game, subtitled The Artist Formerly Known as the Audience, which has proven to be and is just like the beginning. It's a fantastic tool for activating what we like to call invested audiences through the generation of fragments connected to live performances. So this idea of generating fragments, this is something that will happen also in the context of this specific lab, because it's kind of like a red line that's coming through the 3 labs where we are receiving some fragments from the Unarchive Lab, and we will be channeling some fragments forward to the 3rd and last lab that I will tell you more about in a second. So let me just share with you in the chat our little DIY engine for fragment transmission. Here it is. We called it our Umami Liquidity Pool Party. So basically, you're invited to join the document. You will see we set up a little something. It's minimal, but I hope interesting. And basically, one of the ideas is to activate a collective brain. So taking notes, it's a note-taking machine. You can take it at this first level, but beware. With your consent, this might turn into a series of NFT. We don't know. We will let you know. But the idea is, while we are sketching out like new tools for activating the sphere as a collective and the sphere as a community, we have a part of our mind is set towards the goal of engaging and experimenting with NFT production, which you will hear more about shortly. But for now, it's more the idea of having your cut, an inspiration you maybe want to take note or remember something that has been said by someone during the presentation. Maybe it makes you think of something that you want to relate to. So basically, you just play with the slides that are there. You can either follow the little basic umami color code that we have created, the 5 flavors for cryptoeconomic design according to the sphere, or you add your 6th or 7th, or you just create a poutine, as we would say in Canada, which is, for those who don't know, a mix of gravy, cheese, and potato. It's like the most famous meal from where I'm from, Quebec. Voila, voila. So let me
The layer.
Yes, Jem.
Should I run with it, Erik?
I
Maybe I
was
can
just
introduce.
thinking to introduce the third lab and
Awesome.
and present rapidly the film that Ule did, and then it's good. So the third lab that is following this one will happen on the May 12th to 14th, and is entitled Accounting Otherwise, New Ecologies of Funding for the Arts, and will explore more in-depth ideas around gift economies, the ethic of speculative generosity, Staatskunst, and the new system of care formation. And last but not least, there's going to be a land art LARP experiment led by the mysterious and resolutely shady Goldman Snacks collective. And also, as part of the general mixture of the sphere, there is also a series of Sears game design lab that are led by Stephen Bashedla, who is here today. So let me share with you rapidly. Maybe it's a good way to get introduced to the sphere. I will share in the chat a video, because if I put it on my screen, it's a little bit difficult to follow. So here's here's the link of the video. If you go on this link that I just posted, you scroll a little bit down, you will see a short video that we have prepared for the EU, our founders, basically, our grant provider. And we designed, I mean, Ulle and Sarah have made a little bit of their magic here, and they made this little video, and we presented it in the event where everyone that got funded was presenting. Everyone was presenting little slides, and Ulle just like completely rocked the room with this little film. So what I suggest, put yourself on mute. We watch the film. The film is like 2 minutes 20, and then Jem will pick up from there. Okay, I don't know if everyone had enough time to watch the film. Just ping me if you didn't. I think it should be fine. So, Jem, if you want to.
Yes, I wanna. Well, thank you for the fantastic and every time original intro of the sphere. And I think as part of this convergence that's in the digital soul between Curve Labs and the sphere, I think Curve Labs also needs an introduction so that we have our coordinates set before we move on to talk about what we have in store for the digital soul. So Curve Labs is a mechanism design agency, which is sounds like gibberish, but basically we deploy code that agents autonomously interact with that cannot be tampered with. So in your screen, you probably, if I succeed at presenting, you probably see some use cases that Curve Labs is currently working on. This includes tokenized cooperative models. If you are familiar with Robinhood Cooperative, we had created a Web3 based organization for this cooperative, for them to have certain governance functions, but also sharing profits. Then we have some impact projects that are targeting regenerative economics, most specifically carbon sequestration. Then we have interaction patterns between DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, basically blockchain-based life forms. So we try to think about how to bring different organizations together in this new paradigm. And we also build collective access tools for decentralized finance. So you probably hear about all these, money being made and, 100x's going around, and very interesting interest rate mechanisms as well. So what we call future of France, jokingly, it's a iteration of future of finance. And yeah, all of these actually have something in common, which is just the desire to generate new forms of organization. And I think this is also the key element that brings Curve Labs and Sphere together. And today we're going to talk about alternative funding ecologies for the Sphere and how to facilitate that through a design pattern that comes close to an art collective that lives on the Web3 realm. So to date, you watched this video that Ulle prepared. That wasn't the first video of the Sphere. The first video is actually something that I watched before I even knew about the Sphere. And in this video, Ulle and Sarah beautifully, it was some of the most wholesome content I've seen about anything relating to crypto. They were talking about this vision for performances as things that would stigmergically evolve and reproduce themselves, very similar to the concept that Primavera de Filippi had introduced as the plantoid. And so this was the first sort of inspiration point of the Sphere, how to make performances without producers, how to make performances be summonable by audiences, etc. And like how to remove all of this, formalities around the creator and the consumer, etc., which honestly really attracted me. And then we started having these conversations, and all during this time, Sphere as a cyber physical infrastructure, it evolved to take many different shapes. And these shapes, you can see it in its embodiment in the Unarchive, which again, we can discuss it later about how it's instrumentalized as part of the Sphere mechanism in general. but you can also see it as this desire of headless performances. You can see it as a desire for protecting precarious individuals that are belonging to the performing arts ecosystem. You can see it as an IP commons. You can see it as alternative fundings for ecology. So there's a body of desires that the sphere community is able to generate, or we're able to play out. And basically what we are juggling here is these desires with certain technological primitives that could somehow match with these, sometimes divergent, sometimes superimposed expectations from the community. So, well, as part of that, we saw that currently there were independent primitives, basically independent elements, independent columns that have been in production that could come together in an elegant way to provide the sphere with a digital home. And this slide sort of demonstrates a very high-level interaction between these elements. But the reason I'm really excited about this event today is that we have organized this event in a way that we will have speakers from each of these independent blocks. So we will go deep into how we look at content curation, how we look at governance, how we look at interfacing the market, how we look at sharing value, and also what are the interfaces with which we interact with each other. So we're going to have different presenters that are actually building these stuff, building these components. So I'm just really hyped about that in general. Yeah, some layers. So, and for this, we have actually created a little methodology for summoning the digital soul. And I think maybe like Erik, if you want to talk about the most important step of summoning a digital soul, which is intent, because you are like one of the master architects of writing the EU grant that's responsible for giving Sphere life. So maybe we can establish those formative coordinates before we move on as the part of intent.
So yes, indeed, we were able to somehow channel the spirits of EU. We didn't make it the first time, but the second time we did. Sarah and Ule put up an amazing team. Like this thing was like a real collective work, because in order to channel funds from EU, you need to have specialists that know how the EU thinks. You know, it's like it's a whole interfacing mechanism. For anyone who's been writing grant, you know that type of shadow, dark spirit summoning. So we want to change that. I mean, we are very grateful to have received this money, but we think that maybe money could circulate differently, especially when it comes to funding the arts. So in order to summon the digital souls of the future, we need to create abstract machines. Want it or not, sometimes it's necessary in order to then materialize. We need to take from the virtual and bring into the actual. So I guess for doing that, and maybe another thing before I do the summoning proper, maybe one thing that's important to say, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm referring here to what Ruth Catlow from Further Field said at the last Money Lab conference at the end of March. That really touched me, because I think like the sphere has that type of concern in mind. She said something about how when designing tools for the digital tribes of the 21st century, culture comes before structure. And that artistic / cultural component is really key, because it's very easy to get either mesmerized by tech or scared by it, and it's important to accompany the development of programs or capacities for what we like to call processual programming it's also important to cultivate a mycelium of gestures, because gestures, they know more about ourselves than we do sometimes about ourselves. So that idea of cultivating gestures within an organization is really key. And that's something that I'm really proud of when it comes to the way that the sphere is working with itself in order to generate, hopefully, tools that will be useful for others. And so specifically speaking, when we talk about digital soul here, what we have in mind is, we can put it in different ways, but basically the creation of localities, digital localities or cosmolocalities that have both a recursive and a prospective power. So the recursive part is the idea that the digital organizations that we're building have what we call normally a memory. The recursivity of the organization means that it's constantly reasserting, reiterating what it is, constantly bringing in differences in the process. So that would be for the recursive. I'm going fast through it, but tomorrow we will have time to go more in detail in what we mean by this recursive function of a digital soul. And the second aspect is the perspective power. So a soul, if you have one, because it's not given that people have souls, you know, it happens. It's something that happens. It's not something that you necessarily have forever. It allows you to entertain a sense of potentiality. It allows you to see perhaps a glimpse into the future, have intuitions about how things could happen. And that mix of a recursive process, a self-programming process, and at the same time, these snippets of novelty that sometimes we're able to catch, especially if we're in good company, these constitute, let's say, the abstract layer of the digital soul. So to formalize that, we can say that from the concrete perspective of the animation of the sphere and its digital souls, one principle is that the most fragile is also the most real, what is vulnerable, the most valuable. And we are constantly dancing between practices or processes of co-immunity and schizofragility. So you hear my Deleuzian accents here, and I will follow with that. The summoning proper for today's session is an excerpt from Mille Plateaux that goes like this. Now the components are used for organizing a space, not for the momentary determination of a center. The forces of chaos are kept outside as much as possible, and the interior space protects the germinal forces of a task to fulfill or a deed to do. One opens the circle, a crack, it opens it all the way. You let someone in, you call someone, or else goes out oneself, launches forth. One opens the circle not on the side where the old forces of chaos pressed against it, but in another region, one created by the circle itself. As though the circle tended on its own to open onto a future, as a function of the working forces it shelters. This time, it is in order to join with the forces of the future, cosmic forces. One launches forth hazards and improvisation, but to improvise is to join with the world or meld with it. So this is an excerpt from A Thousand Plateaux, translated by our friend Brian Masumi. And now on that abstract machine layer, Cem will put some technological flesh.
It's always a challenge to take the flair from Deleuze and run with like technocratic stuff, but we have to do that anyhow. So after intent, which was so eloquently described by our friend Erik, we go to the next part of summoning a digital soul, which is the ingredients. And for ingredients, actually, I'm going to switch this beautiful GIF into this one. So here you see 5 discrete elements that are more or less coming together in 3 main high-level functionalities, essentially. let's start with a friendly version first. I call it create, curate, capture. So the way that translates on the technological layer is governance, where it's represented as the DAO and the multisig here. Then we have NFTs and Spectre, which fall into creation and capture vectors, and quadratic voting, which is the creational aspect. So as I mentioned earlier, we will have presentations that are pertaining to each of these subsections. But if I have to say a little bit about it, there are these considerations for bringing this Web3 based organization to Sphere's network. Essentially, Sphere, maybe Erik, you can say a few words about or Sarah, Ulle, you can say a few words about Sphere's network. Maybe we have audience that is coming from outside. Are we?
Yes, Sarah, Ulle, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, the network for the Sphere consists now of 11 partners from Europe and North America. And that's just the formal partners. I mean, you all that participate in this meeting are somehow partnering with the Sphere, but the formal partners are circus festivals in Italy, Portugal, France, Lithuania. We have the game designer, Steven, who's in this meeting, who was actually who was once founded the game design education in Sweden. We have Stockholm School of Economics, and we have an artist residing in Vermont, US. So it's a diverse partnership, but the base comes from contemporary circus, which is what we do basically, and that's what we come from. And contemporary circus is also like the playground we want to change the rules within. So, but we need this diverse group. We need you academics, we need the tech people, coders. But the partnership is super strong when it comes to implementing new infrastructure. I mean, we can try something out like super quickly and with a very hungry and a group of professionals within the art sector who does work on a daily basis. So that's who we are.
I would also like. Thank you so much, Sarah. So, like, in my mind, we have in Sphere's mind, in my mind, Sphere has artists at the very center. Bettering the conditions of the artist, bettering or creating new conditions for the artist, for their autonomy from, legacy avenues of funding or legacy avenues that perpetuate certain elements of monoculture, but also that sort of coerces their time from their art and flows them into grants writing processes or otherwise interfacing the worst kind of market, sometimes, not that I have anything against the streets, but sometimes in unfavorable conditions, etc. But as Sarah described, we have this huge network that is composed of circus organizations around Europe, as well as academic institutions that are able to contribute to this Sphere set of goals in substantially. So what this mechanism is supposed to do is that it has to bring all of these stakeholders together while achieving its outcomes for the artist that it's not promised, but it's that it wants to play out. So this is the sort of challenge that the mechanism, technological mechanism, the stack of the sphere is facing. But I think we have come to a very nice design pattern, thanks to all our partners that are developing these individual primitives, as we call them, which I'm very excited to hear more about. And then finally, after our ingredients, we have the ritual. And in this part, we will talk about the interface, how we interface with the sphere itself, and influence. Who has ritualistic powers? Who has powers of changing the collective vibes that are being generated inside this experiment? And this part, we will mainly connect to the Black Swan crew, where they will talk about their experiences in governance as play and new interfaces for upgrading Windows 98 aesthetic of current governance objects in the Web3 space. So this is pretty much what we have. I think this can also be described as the enrichment process, this ritualistic process. Maybe Erik, you want to jump back in and talk a little bit about.
I will wrap up this initial session with the description of the very concrete proposal that we have right now. But Ule, I think you wanted to say something first.
Yeah, it was just because my mic was doing some weird things when I tried to talk. But because I just wanted to add that the informal partners of a wide range of practitioners, circus artists, as well as technicians, as well as companies nationally here in Sweden, where we are based, but then also in all these partner countries. So it's not just the formal partners, but also the formal partners networks when it comes to national and international global circus companies and artists. So it's actually quite a strong network, informal network as well, that are people that are very keen on trying out, wanting to participate, waiting for the nitty-gritty to be able to do so. So just to say, it's super exciting for a whole community and a whole area of performing arts at the moment that have a very the lacking infrastructure is incredible, and this is a super interesting way of looking at it, I would say. So just wanted to add all the artists around the globe.
So today we will concentrate on the technological layer, but tomorrow we will have more time to deploy a little bit what we have in mind when it comes to crypto strategies for transforming ecologies of funding, ways of making things happen in real life. It's a wonderful privilege to work with Sarah, Ule, because they are no bullshit artists, which is a very refreshing and necessary thing when you evolve in realms that are very speculative, either on the theoretical side or on the tech side. I mean, tech side knows about bullshit quite a lot as well. And with Ule and Sarah, we've already went through quite a lot, and we're happy to have filtered out a couple of elements. That being said, maybe just to wrap up this initial session and open up questions very shortly, what we have in mind right now for this specific iteration of the sphere, which as Cem said before, like the sphere is manifold, it's germinating in many directions, but we've agreed on establishing a game plan for basically the sphere grant is articulated around the production of 3 pilot performances using the tools that we will have been developing over the 3 years period of the grant. So in order to do that, we have what I like to call an enrichment process, which is basically using the different layers that we will be presenting today and allowing for the different artists that are part of the already existing network of the sphere to submit propositions in order to participate in the selection process of the 3 pilot performances that will be at the end of the process chosen to represent and to push the model further. And we call it enrichment process because the use that we will make of culture stake, for instance, will facilitate the involvement of an extended amount of people. Basically, what we have in mind is to have all the partners and people that they want to bring in the process. So we're imagining at least 100 people, maybe more. Let's see, this is all to be designed of the different partners and people that they bring in to participate in the collective jury that will select the work. But it goes beyond the mere selection of the work, because using culture stake will also allow through the conviction voting and quadratic voting to bring in a qualitative assessment to the different propositions, so that it's not just about you win or you lose, or you send an application and 3 months or 6 months later you get or you don't get the money without any further explanation. If you propose something within the sphere context, well, you will gain already an exposure to a community that is structured around the tools that we're proposing, curational tools essentially. And who knows, maybe your proposition doesn't get selected for this iteration of the sphere, but maybe someone else in the network will be interested in producing that work in the near future. Or why not, the financial structure that we attach to this proposition can eventually go for the crowdfunding road, or who knows, maybe an NFT road, which here, just to make it clear, we're not necessarily so interested in NFTs as commodification of art or new layer of commodification of art, but we're thinking of NFT as organizational object, which is what tokens, cryptoeconomics can be imagined to be. So this is something that we will discuss further with the Spectre team at the end of today, but also in more details tomorrow. So basically, this is the enrichment process that we are aiming at, that is basically one interpretation of all the tools that we're presenting today. I don't know, Jem, did I miss anything, or Ule or anyone else?
That was great. I mean, there's so much more to be said on these subjects about like the aesthetics that we are developing, or we are embodying for interfacing. You know, the market as such has to be very much developed and opened up. But I think, like you said, that's a complex. Even perhaps tomorrow, because today, of course, Spectre harbors a lot of these questions itself. So we'll probably segue from our last event to tomorrow with these meta considerations and aesthetics with regards to market force.
So, and we have like 4 presentations now that will flesh out each of the layers. So if you have questions, maybe we can open the floor really rapidly because we're a little bit lagging on time. And otherwise, we have this document. I can share the link again, the Umami Liquidity Pool Party document, where you can share thoughts, questions, remarks, and that will feed the collective discussion asynchronously also. So is there anyone who would like to say something at this stage of the process? And if there is no one, I guess we can move. Oh, Jonas, you want to say something?
I was thinking about, maybe just a very easy practical question. Is there right now, for people who are not directly involved as partners, any practical ways to participate, or to, just a curiosity, or is this format we're having right now the thing we can participate in?
I think the easiest way is to participate, like very concretely, the Telegram chat that we have. It's a good way to be in touch for now, I would say. And these labs are starting to create a movement of their own, and people are attaching to different aspects of the project also. So there's like micro communities that are starting to form around different aspects of the sphere. So that if you look too hard for the core of the sphere, you might get either overwhelmed or disappointed. Things are starting to happen on the edges.
Yeah, great. I'll look into that. Thanks.
Yes. And one more thing is the unarchive method, actually. So of course, right now you're in a more mobile situation, it seems, but you know, this action of collective harvesting of ephemeral contents such as performances are interesting ways in which, you know, communities can be cultivated in a productive force for the organization, because again, these performances are most of the time ephemeral, and we need certain elements, impressions that bring them together to present to people who weren't there, etc. So I think that's a very key community role that's evolving, like Erik said, and I would love to see more people participate in that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So maybe we can present a little bit to the schedule.
I think we can go. Yeah, I mean, super rapidly. We have Beth McCarthy from Gnosis, who's going to be our first speaker today, followed by Sarah Friend from Culture Stake, a project that was developed in relation with Furtherfield, in close collaboration with Furtherfield. And then we follow with Lara Lotti, Callum, and Penny Rafferty for the presentation of Black Swan DAO, Black Swan. And we will end with Spectre, which is a brand new project for NFT minting and facilitating fractionalized ownership of NFTs. And we will have time at the end of the day, like we must have like at least half an hour, maybe more for more open discussion. And for each presentation, we suggest roughly 20 minutes with a 10-minute discussion at the end of it. So, I mean, if there is no objections, I guess I would pass the speaking stick to Beth.